Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Cilinix Crypto, or welcome to the channel if you're new, and welcome to this new video on Hedera. We had to make a video on Hedera. It's been one of the strongest cryptos over the course of this morning, in combination, or at least in addition to the entire narrative around it, being quite bullish. And then I'm talking about, it's a mix between coins that have already had an ETF, like Litecoin has also been quite strong. XRP is probably going to get an ETF that has also been relatively strong. And those Dino coins, right? I mean, Hedera, Stellar, XRP, that kind of these old coins that, also rallied a lot in November last year, to be fair. So there's quite a lot of momentum fundamentally because of that. We'll talk about the ETF inflows, what those mean. And then we will spend most time talking about the technicals. I think the technicals for Hedera are actually very interesting, and there's some interesting things going on right now. The overall, the momentum is still relatively low, as you can see, but a big green candle on the 4-hour time frame. I think on the it's pretty strange if you look at the spot volume. The spot volume is incredibly low, especially if you compare to the last time that we were very strong, which was Monday the 27th of October, but we're still rallying. Leverage is also quite low, so this is very interesting. There just seems to be, when we're talking about this momentum here specifically, there just seems to be a huge difference in or a huge gap in the proportion between buyers and sellers, which is, regardless of open interest or volume coming in, still bullish. But okay, so like I said, fundamentally, there is some momentum in the entire narrative. If you take a look at cryptocurrencies that are rallying a lot over the last 24 hours, you can see some of these older coins, right? There's obviously more, but some of the older coins, such as XDC, HBAR, XRP, Stellar, maybe Injective as well. So there is some momentum there. That is good to see. But outside of that, the Hedera ETF inflows have not been bad. You can see that right here. Now, I do think we're kind of getting towards the moment of truth, because you can see we had some massive inflows last week, Monday, but also the Friday and the week before. And then, after that, it dropped down a little bit, where we're getting on average like $1.5 million in inflows from November 4th, which was Tuesday, into Friday. I think on average then it's actually lower than $1 million, because on Friday we had nothing. And I think some of the inflows that we had November the 3rd and October the 31st and that week before were also pledged, right? So those were to a certain extent already priced in. That's basically just entities saying, okay, we will buy so much of your ETF. However, these are solid inflows, especially given that it's the Canary Capital ETF, and we are most likely going to see more Hedera ETFs. So that is something that serves as a bit of a catalyst. All right, if we know that there's more ETFs coming, and one of the least good, let's keep it at that, fund managers, Canary Capitals, their ETF is already doing quite well, then the expectation of the other, solid fund manager Hedera ETFs, the expectation of that increases. The expectation of that becomes better. So I think that serves as a fundamental catalyst. And then, like I said, I mean, the one thing I'm a little bit hesitant about is the lack of momentum right now. Like very often, if you talk about Hedera and you talk about every time that it rallied a lot, it also had significant momentum coming in. So that is something I'm fairly cautious about, right? So therefore, I would also say expect volatility. And personally, I'm not interested in buying Hedera yet. But there's at least, theoretically, fundamentally, there's these catalysts. For me, technically, there's two main levels to look at. First of all, this level right here at 19.5 cents. 19.5 cents is a critical resistance level historically, but outside of that, it's also the value area high, so the range high of all the price action the 10th of October. And it was also the point of control right here at 19.6 in that brief range we had at the end of October, beginning of November, when we tried to break out after the ETF launch. So it's also a very liquid zone. If we are able to break above that level with high momentum, I'm going to buy. Until then, I think it's more interesting, also if you zoom in for Hedera right here, I think it's more interesting to wait for a bit of a pullback. We have quite a lot of imbalances to the downside right here. I think a solid reaction at like 17.7 or potentially even 18.2 could be interesting for a buy order as well. So I'm definitely looking to buy, but right now I think it's better to wait for either 19.5 cents to break, or for a strong retest at 18.2 that serves as confirmation of momentum coming in. But those are my thoughts. I think that, I mean, ultimately, if I would have to say what is most likely, I'd say something like this. So I do expect us to break out, but I just think it's more likely to, I just think it's better to wait for some solid confirmation, given the lack of momentum that I can observe. Those are my thoughts. Thank you for watching, everybody. Have a great rest of your week, of course, and bye.